You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, welcome to an exciting episode of the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. We got a lot to cover. I can tell you right now what I was planning on covering and preparing all day for, at least up till about 3 hours ago, was a completely different subject, but we had a lot of new information come in. I've been on the phone with multiple people. I've been exchanging emails with multiple people. We have a ton of new information that will drop Friday. All right, I'm going to share some stuff with you tonight. But what I can tell you for sure is just about everything that we know surrounding Fort Huachuca is a lie. All right, we're going to cover that in depth. We're still waiting on a few other documents, but I've been on the phone with a lot of different people associated with Mitch Snow, and then I spent 2.5 hours yesterday on the phone with none other than Mitch Snow himself. So we got a lot of information coming down for that. A lot of exciting stuff. I got some additional documents I'm going to share with you that provides proof that Brian Harpole was indeed not there at Fort Huachuca on the day that they are claiming that he was there. Not that we even need that. I mean, the whole story is ridiculous. I want to go through some of those things and talk about why that story doesn't make sense to begin with. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, but I want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. We are definitely going to do our annual Christmas. We'll probably do it Wednesday. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, but we will do a Christmas episode. We're definitely going to do a giveaway with a whole bunch of stuff. We always do it. And it's because of what you guys supporting this channel. We're able to do that. And also everybody that supports our business. I mean, that's the real reason that we're able to do that. A lot of the money goes out of the business into this channel. And, we appreciate all the customers that make this happen, and this is why we get to do what we do. I just got the phone with Nate from VFT. We've been talking about and coordinating this for the last, 3 or 4 days. It's going to get interesting. But again, I want to say hi to everybody over there in the chat. I'm going to scroll way up and just start with some of the top folks. We got Tatiana, CP1FC. She says, this is my new favorite channel. Thank you very much. We got Texas Motherbird 63. She also says, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe. And if you guys would like to become a member, that does help the channel. So we appreciate that. She is a member. So we appreciate you, Texas Motherbird 63. Gilligan's Hagen, nothing better to do, Gary. Nothing better to do. We'll talk about some of that stuff. Candace Owens is a great fiction writer. Hurdy for the Gertie, 468. And several, mostly peaceful combat veteran. He's always on the channel. So anyways, Dan Campbell, a whole bunch of other folks that are always here. We appreciate you. All of our moderators, we appreciate you. You guys do great work on there. And again, what we always start the channel with is, you know what? We encourage disagreement. We do. Any ad hominems, we're just going to, you start name calling, start acting like a child, you're gone. Simple as that. We want to have a good discussion here. That's why I do these live streams, so that we can talk, we can converse, we can have some dialogue and discourse. That's what it's all about. And it also is another way to honor Charlie's legacy, which is what a lot of this stuff is about. Just earlier, somebody made a comment on my X. If you're not following me on X, I definitely recommend you go do that. This person basically said something to the effect of, why somebody like you, with all that you got going on, why are you wasting your time debunking Candace? And my reply to that was, there's nothing more important than the truth. Her propaganda is doing irreparable harm to the conservative movement, Charlie's legacy, and the American people. I don't see any subject carrying more weight than this right now. And that's how I feel about this. And the damage that she has done with this narrative that she's pushed out, that is just demonstrably not true. TPUSA did not kill Charlie Kirk. I've seen no evidence that Israel had a hand in killing Charlie Kirk. I've definitely seen no evidence that the French had a hand in doing it. And now she kind of effed up, and she turned around and she wants to claim that the United States military was involved in killing Charlie Kirk. It is the most ridiculous claim out of all of this, and that's saying a lot when it comes down to it. But the idea that they're going to have some sort of meeting at Joint Task Force Southern Border, of all places. Folks, you have to understand, JTF Southern Border is basically a advise and assist role of the military to the Border Patrol to help them with all of that and to also curb, all the illegal, not only illegal aliens coming in, but drugs and everything else. So it's an assistance to federal agencies trying to help secure our border. And primarily, that consists of conventional units. I'm sure there are some special operations units, maybe doing some reconnaissance, doing some other things down there in intel collection. Without a doubt, that definitely takes place. But we're primarily talking about a bunch of conventional forces. Now, you key up this idea that we're going to do this clandestine operation where we are going to have an assassination of a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil. And that is going to be presented, planned, and discussed at Fort Huachuca. It is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. Most of the guys down there, and probably even some of the, I'm sure most of the officers do, but 90% of the soldiers attached to JTF South, they're not even going to have a security clearance. And the idea that they're going to have Brian Harpole down there, that doesn't make sense unless, I guess you can make it make sense. And then, of course, we have Erica Kirk that supposedly was seen the night before. Like, why would they do that? It's so bizarre, so dumb. And then on top of that, the backstory of all this that I have confirmed, folks, a couple of things that I can tell you that I have confirmed over the last couple of days is that Mitch Snow was not in witness protection. We have a very interesting and funny story about that entire backstory and how it relates to other things that are already out there. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give too much away, but we will be doing over the next couple of days. Me and Nate are kind of still planning this stuff out. He has a bunch of information. I have a bunch of information that I've gathered. He's talked to witnesses that are close to this gentleman. I've talked to him. I've talked to, again, other people that are close to him during that time period, by the way. People that were associated with him from 90 to 94 is when this person was associated with him that would know everything about what was going on. He was not in witness protection. The cartels were not after him. This is a person that is a pathological liar that is known for that. And we are still, I will tell you right now, I have a DD-214 from him that is being assessed at USASOC. I don't even care if he ends up being a Green Beret. It really doesn't matter. That's still in question. But what I will tell you is that his backstory didn't take place. A lot of other things that he said did not take place. And we will be dropping a massive amount of receipts. On top of that, eyewitnesses all over the place that can tell you for sure that this guy is not on the up and up. And it is going to prove that a couple things. It's going to prove that, number one, Candace doesn't vet her sources. And the other thing that proves is someone is unsophisticated, which, by the way, once I started digging into this guy, I found out a lot of information that was very indicative of the fact that most of the stuff was nonsense. So very quickly, just on the surface, I was able to debunk his credibility at the very minimum. There's lots of court cases against this guy, mostly domestic violence, among other things. So the point here is that if somebody is unsophisticated, this guy can trick Candace the way that he did. You start entering in state-sponsored intelligence operations that would definitely want to get information onto her show to discredit the United States, to discredit different federal agencies, to discredit, to also divide the conservative movement, both political operatives. I'm talking George Soros, deep state type people that would want to get information to her to damage the credibility of the Trump administration, to splinter up the conservative movement. And ultimately, the real problem that I have with a lot of this stuff is that somebody that's been following Charlie Kirk for a long time, the intent here is to completely destroy his legacy. And I'm not going to stand by and let that happen. On top of that, what we need to let the American people know is they've been tricked. And we need definitely a little bit more cognitive security in this country. And it's not just like, hey, yeah, the government's lied to us, so we're just going to, by default, always go with the opposite narrative of what the government says. That doesn't make sense either, because as we're going to prove, and as we've seen many times already, I mean, if you're not paying attention to how much nonsense has flooded this space from the very beginning, and that was, to me, that was the indication that we're dealing with the PSYOP. Within the first week of Charlie Kirk's death, we had all the crazy theories flying around, from drones to palm guns to exploding microphones, and all the stuff is still being pushed, by the way. Tunnels underneath Charlie, all the stuff. And starting out not knowing, there was no official narrative. There was not a single official narrative at all. The only thing that I started off doing was saying, okay, let's talk about this palm gun thing. This is horseshit. And as soon as I started saying that and debunking these individual things that weren't attached to necessarily a larger narrative, weren't attached to what Candace was saying at the time, immediately I started getting this pushback of, you're a Fed. No, I just don't believe that a palm gun. There's not tunnels underneath Charlie. By the way, those hatches were exposed the entire time. There's no way they could have been opened and, a midget assassin jump out and shoot somebody. But just by saying that right off the bat, you're paid by Israel. And that has continued to go on. And now I got bots flooding my channel, bots flooding my account with Twitter, trying to make all these claims of what I'm doing and my intentions and, getting paid and all this other stuff. And it's just a matter of giving you folks the truth. And then there's folks that are they're so invested in this and so convinced that just something is amiss. Some of them can't even put their finger on it, but they just been convinced because the waters were muddied so early that something was wrong, that they're willing to believe anything other than the official narrative, quote unquote. So hopefully people are paying attention, and there is nothing more important than covering this and exposing this psychological operation for what it is. It is an information operation that is designed to create chaos amongst the American people. And it's designed to create chaos amongst the conservative party, as we're seeing that even at AmFest. I don't know if you guys watched many of the speeches. Some were really good, but there was a lot of contention in there. And so we're most likely, and I think you can attribute a lot of what's going on with this, we haven't been able to coalesce and start really paying attention to the midterms. And I think that's by design. And then on top of that, this may continue to go on if this nonsense doesn't stop soon. We're not going to be able to focus our attention on the real threat, and that is going into 2028. And speaking of not focusing on the real threat, that has been a major point in this, because all of this stuff, not just Candace, but a lot of the stuff that the internet was flooded with to begin with, was a distraction from the real threat. And some of the things that I wanted to cover tonight, were kind of ready to cover, was the potential. Let's get something straight. Let me back up just a minute. Gary does not think that Tyler was the only one involved in this. Okay, I think at a minimum that Lance Twiggs knew about this and most likely provided material aid in this. Heck, Lance Twiggs could have been there for all I know. I don't think that. We haven't seen any evidence of that. I also think that Tyler Robinson could have been part of something larger. I mean, we see what's going on with George Zinn. We saw, I can't think of the other guy's name. That was the person asking the question, Hunter Kozak. Okay, there's some weird things there, and maybe those things are being investigated, and maybe they're not. I don't know. Hopefully they are, but if they're not, they need to be. Also, the Salt Lake City armed queers and a whole bunch of other things that people haven't been able to pay attention to and been able to focus on because of all of this insanity. And then people also being convinced that Tyler Robinson wasn't involved or wasn't the shooter and wasn't even on campus, which is, again, you have to apply some common sense. He was at least on campus. And by the way, I think he definitely pulled the trigger. The evidence says so. And we have even more evidence that's coming out. And you can disagree with that, and that's fine. But, it is what it is. The other thing that I want to show oh, Jesus, we got a big super chat here. I'm going to jump on this real quick. I've been waiting for you a couple days. Thank you for doing this. Candace's victim blaming and shaming Erica is a victim. Keep sharing the truth. Loving Jesus. A $200 super chat. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I agree. And folks, I can't think of anything more important than this. Because this is a national, but really a global event that's taking place where we're being tricked. And it's also the most disappointing thing to me about all of this is the fact that it is so easy to trick the American people. And when we get someone that is more sophisticated than Candace, because Candace isn't very sophisticated, and if you check any of her stuff real quickly, you can find out that just things don't add up. And there's a whole bunch of different reasons. You can go from individual claims that she makes to just the overall narrative inside of one episode to the overall narrative inside all the episodes that completely change and switch and move around. And the whole time she's not providing evidence. Folks, we're getting into the age of AI where someone that is a little more convincing than Candace can actually start providing proof using AI, and it's going to have hundreds of millions of people tricked into believing nonsense. And man, this stuff goes into, you start getting into things like, the globalist movement, one world order. I mean, that's how these things are going to take place. If you want to get into the book of Revelation and start talking about the mark of the beast, we can do that too. All right. So it has never been my position that Tyler Robinson acted alone. And you people need to understand that. I have always said from like the first week, I've said this since Thomas Crook's event as well. I think it is very real. And I think it's something that the American people deserve to know about. The fact that it is very easy to target, identify, radicalize, and weaponize people, especially younger kids that are spending dozens of hours per day online. And I think that is so much simpler and easier to do that than to send a bunch of French assassins over here and have to mechanically plan this operation. And no, like you can just radicalize these people. They're completely disposable. It's not that hard. And chances are, given that security isn't that great, especially for somebody like Charlie Kirk, it's just not. It never has been. It's not that hard to pull off. Now, it could end up, and that part is pure speculation on my end. Pure speculation. Could end up being that that's all we get. I don't know. But I think it's something that needs to be looked into. And when you have somebody like Candace Owens and many other people that have the time, the resources, and everything else, not that she seems to spend a lot of resources. She's never gone to UVU. She's never really done much other than her tip box. But even her tip box could have been helpful if we started looking at, the Salt Lake City armed queers and all of these other potential and the most likely suspects to begin with. But we've been completely distracted from that. We've been told that, hey, we need to look at the French. We need to look at Israel. We need to look at Egyptian planes that were completely debunked, by the way. We need to look at the security team. We need to look at TPUSA. And just like this person says, we are now victim blaming. People are just having a grand old time making fun of Erica and, making fun of the victims of TPUSA. I don't care what you think about TPUSA. There is no indication that they were involved in this. And for you to say that with so little evidence, shame on you. You should be embarrassed. It's disgusting. And the fact that you were so easily tricked into that by people saying, oh God, look, under this, we have this completely traumatic event for somebody like Mikey McCoy, who I think is 22 years old. Just a young guy to experience something and like, oh, he didn't act like I thought he should react. So therefore it's suspicious. We needed to, and then for them to throw out all the crazy lies that have continued to snowball into a grander conspiracy. It's insane. It's completely insane. How could any intelligent person spending 2.5 hours talk with Mitch Snow? I assume you tolerated him for entertainment. It was a crazy adventure. I'll leave it at that. I think conservatives are finally speaking up. Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro aren't afraid of Candace called the support for the Target employee. I'm standing up to the stupidity at work. Keep speaking the truth. Thank you, Gary. And folks, hopefully that's just where we continue with this. Like the amount of resistance that I've had from the beginning of this, again, just when I was debunking individual dumb things, at the time I was like, hey man, maybe the FBI is involved. Maybe freaking, I don't know. I was open to everything. I had all kinds of different people on my show that could believe completely different. Went to UVU. That trip to UVU changed a lot for me. It really did. It put things in perspective. And if all these people that are claiming to investigate this thing and they haven't even taken the time to go to UVU, I think it's disingenuous, especially somebody like Candace Owens. Debbie Brzezinski, keep fighting the good fight and shine the light on the facts, not fiction. Watching the meltdowns on your ex are hilarious. Merry Christmas to you and your entire family. Thank you, Debbie, and Merry Christmas to you as well. Brad Bowen, my man Gary knocking holes in Candy's BS. Merry Christmas. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. We need to demand proof of life of George and the kids. I'm convinced she tucked them in weeks ago and has just been living her best Norman-based life. That's actually a pretty funny comment. I don't know what's going on with that. One of the things that I wanted to do for tonight's show is I did get additional proof. Look, I know people that I knew when I posted Brian Harpole's itinerary that people were going to shoot holes in that. First of all, I want to say I had additional information with a lot of PI and some other things going on there that I didn't want to share for privacy reasons. Not because, and so the other thing I know is that there are 8 other people that went with him on that trip that left Dallas Fort Worth at 1:42, which is again that it's 2 hours earlier at in New Mexico, New Mexico at the time. Or Arizona, Fort Huachuca, New Mexico, or Arizona. I forget. I don't know. So, anyways, the point is that there is not enough time for that to have even taken place. The additional information I'm going to share with you is the fact that he was actually on that trip with Charlie Kirk. I'll show those, but I did get additional things from Brian today that I will go ahead and present to you. Because people were like, "Oh, well, we need a boarding pass." The problem, folks, is like most of the boarding passes and some of these other things that would prove that you took the flight are actually kind of hard to find. Number one, I was just looking at my app; they don't keep those things, but I do have additional proof that Brian Harpole was indeed on that trip, and I will pull these up. Let me see what the easiest way to do with this is. We're going to share some image files. All right. So, I had these pulled up right. I was literally getting off the phone, folks, with Nate as my intro was taking place. So bear with me on this. Oh, geez. Of course, this is all sorted weird. And again, like we always tell you, folks, we will prioritize the super chats, but I will try to get to as many the lives as well. So first of all, I just want to show you guys, this is what I posted today. So we posted this. I've posted this a couple times over the course of this, proving that Brian Harpole was indeed in Dallas Fort Worth at the time that basically she claims he was in Fort Huachuca. So I just want us to take a look here, and we can look at this e-ticket number that we have right here. All right, 3595 is the last 4. We see what's going on there. I think there was some other information there. All right, so we have that. Now let's look at some additional verification that we have on here. So this is actually what you get when you've taken the flight. You've actually taken the flight, and they show that your miles that you're going to be received for that flight. So kind of like, you know, your mileage flight receipt, if you will. So we have right here again, e-ticket 3595. We see that he actually received those miles, all of those things. All right, we got some more coming up too. And look, I am not under any delusion that as I share this information, this information is only for the reasonable among us. All right, that's it. For the people that are just diehard, hey, Brian Harpole killed Charlie, this is not going to do anything. They're going to say, oh, it could be faked. They're going to come up, they're going to twist and turn and come up with 1,000 excuses as to why he was actually in Fort Huachuca with the U.S. military, conventional forces, actually planning a clandestine operation that would only be handled by the darkest parts of the CIA, by the way. It's just so ridiculous. So here we have, let me see. All right. Traveler details, some additional information. Ticket, 1 carry-on. We have that. Let me see what else I got on this. Now, if and when, let's say, I don't know, let's say, for instance, Brian Harpole decides to take some sort of legal action against Candace over all this craziness. Oh, the other thing he showed me, he provided me, and again, this doesn't even have a name on it, but take it for what it's worth. All right. So this is a text. This is where he stayed. These are the other people that he actually went with. They're on the flight. So the point here is that if and when he decides to take some of this stuff to court, then they'll be able to actually get much more detailed records. We're going to be able to bring in people that are going to be able to give witness statements saying that he was indeed on this flight. So from the outside looking in, or just from a non-judicial standpoint or a non-legal standpoint, I mean, some of the stuff is a little bit difficult to prove, but we're giving you the information. And that flight existed. He was on that flight. And there's a lot more information that is available if they needed to prove this in court. But the fact is, and by the way, I will also tell you, no, I won't share that. I don't know if that people want to share that. There's other information when it comes to Candace. Yeah, I'm not gonna share that. All right. So there's that. So the point being is you either believe this stuff or you don't, or if you want to believe nonsense. And by the way, you've been told a story that you now believe. And this is the crazy thing about the whole Candace Owens saga with all this stuff. It's like she gives a story or gives information with 0 receipts. But then when you debunk her, they freaking try to pick you apart. Even when you provide additional proof that what she's saying is not true, they believed her with no evidence, and they still don't believe you, even when you do provide evidence. And no matter amount of evidence you provide is ever good enough. So they've been convinced by nothing, and they will accept nothing. That's the crazy part of this entire story. Gary Shaver, thank you for becoming a member. We appreciate your support, buddy. How big of a super chat? Never mention Candace Owens again. Merry Christmas to you and the family. Not big enough. All we got to do is get her to go away. High Speed Chase became a member as well. So, you know, there's a lot going on there, and we got a lot more information coming to prove that the Fort Huachuca mystery event didn't happen at all. And it was never a believable story for lots of different reasons. All right, I'm gonna start going through some of these lives real quick. Again, I had a whole nother kind of episode planned tonight. I do want to start getting into the other part of this, and that is the deep state conspiracy, which I do think there is one. And when I say the deep state, what that means to me, and I know it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. When I say the deep state, I think there are clearly, whether we're talking about the intel community all the way to through bureaucrats that are sprinkled, not really even sprinkled, the majority of the federal government, by the way. So the majority of the federal government is made up by a lot of leftists. And when I say the deep state, what I'm talking about specifically is the radical leftists within our own government. And they exist in all the, from the bureaucracy standpoint and all the different agencies, all the way through the intelligence community. And they are wanting to push leftist ideology no matter what. They want to take over this country, and they're fighting for they're fighting to make you believe things that are not true so that they can control this country. They want to get rid of guns. They want to get rid of freedom of speech. We saw the censorship that the deep state and the left, and even the deep state, there are close ties with all the social media. All right. Social media, mainstream media, they're all tied into one another, which is a real problem because they all believe the same thing. You know, I think when it comes to Google, I think Google has one foot in China and is just trying to figure out how to, they're putting their money, they're betting all of their money on China. Like Google and some of these other social media platforms, they do not believe in the American way. They do not believe in the principles on which this country was founded, and they sure as hell don't believe in the Constitution. They find that thing very pesky, to say the least. So when it comes to Charlie's assassination, I think Gary's done real boots on the ground investigations, making good theories, logical hypotheses, and making rational common sense. He has many receipts. We try to bring receipts every single time. I will stack my receipts up against Candace any day of the week. I like this. This is cool. Like and subscribe. Let's get some of these other ones down here that are much further down. The deep state is why Dan Bongino has resigned. I agree with that. I think Dan Bongino most likely just got frustrated with what's going on inside the U.S. government, and that's what we have. Why are you the one that has to prove Brian's alibi? Well, I'm not the only one, by the way. Alex Jones just posted his alibi. Let me frame this right. Look, I obviously didn't know Brian Harpole until I met him. After meeting him, after hearing his story, hearing some of the other things going on, I like Brian Harpole. I think he's a good man. All right. I don't need another reason other than that. He's being accused of murder of his protectee. Like, that's all I need for me. Like, I'm on his side. I don't care what you say. They've picked apart everything that he's ever said and tried to turn it into a lie. And I don't see that. All right. So that's where I'm at on that. I'm on that side of it. So you can try to turn that into something else, but that's all I need. If the same thing was being done to anybody, and I had just met them and I understand, and I've been convinced that, hey, here's the truth, here's the lie. All right, I'm going to defend the truth every time. It's almost Christmas and Candace has blamed everyone from French Legionnaires. I'm waiting for her to add the ghost of Christmas Past, Elf's Bigfoot before New Year. It's probably coming. You're probably not wrong. Carl Hamilton's victim blaming. Yeah, because if Gary ceased and his wife went on tour with pyrotechnics and sold t-shirts while shilling for you know who, we wouldn't think it's weird at all. Shabbat shalom. Again, this is the craziness that we're dealing with. TPUSA is an organization. It was Charlie's life. It's what he built from the ground up, and his wife is trying to honor that and continue to go and do that. And they raise funds just like every other business, organization, or anything else out there does. And there's nothing dishonest or even weird about that. If you are going to win 2.5 million votes for the next conservative candidate, which is exactly what Charlie did against Kamala Harris, it takes money. Let's quit pretending that it doesn't take money. And I don't really see what the problem is. The real problem that I have, the real grift that I see, is when you're being told lies constantly, and a person telling lies and doing 3 months of content, making tens of millions of dollars through selling all kinds of t-shirts, mugs, other merch, right? And on top of that, getting sponsorship deals because of her numbers. And of course, all the somebody did a count. I mean, the super chats that Candace is receiving is insane. And then all the other ways that she's profiting off of this. And it's all based on lies. So again, it's people trying to make much ado about nothing, and it's just normal. Like, I don't know what people expect out of Erica. She can do no right no matter what. You people have disgustingly demonized her to a point that it doesn't even make sense. You're showing your true colors. And that's the thing too. Like, folks, go look at all these social media influencers that are pounded on TPUSA, that are, demonizing Erica Kirk. Go look at their past prior to September 10th. They hated TPUSA. Most of them were not conservatives, or were these never Trump conservatives. It is all generated out of hate, not out of truth, not out of actual evidence of finding actual conspiracies. If I could find a conspiracy or evidence that point to Israel doing it, TPUSA doing it, or whatever else, I'd be all on board. But they don't have that because it doesn't exist, because that's not what happened. Do you know the 4 layers of the deep state? No, but you can please lay that out. I know I've seen it before. I know what you're talking about. My guns from my cold dead hands. I agree with you. If you don't own guns, you should. Thank you for bringing the truth. We appreciate you. All right, back to the live chats. Candace hasn't proven a single thing. Even Alex Jones looks sane compared to her. I agree. And when you have, look, Alex Jones not only comes up with some of the craziest conspiracies, some of which have been true, right? I like Alex Jones. I like Alex Jones a lot, but he goes off the deep end. And even while I'm watching Alex Jones, somebody I like he'll come up with a crazy conspiracy, and I'll be like, yeah, that one's a swing and a miss, Alex. The difference, but now you have Alex Jones who doesn't do this. Like, I've never seen him come out and actually tell someone, like, you got to stop what you're doing. This is crazy. Like, you've gone way too far. And when Alex Jones is saying that you're over your skis, you should probably listen. But the other thing that we know about Alex Jones is, like, he doesn't go around blaming individuals. I haven't ever seen this. And saying, this person or this person without evidence is guilty of something. One thing I can say about Alex Jones, and it's not always correct, but he always brings receipts. He always has evidence. He always has proof. And that's the biggest difference between Candace and everybody else. Conspiracies happen. I'm all about it. Our government lies to us all the time. There's plenty of proof of that. The difference is we sit down and we look at evidence. We look at things logically. We use a little bit of common sense, and we say, hey, does this make sense? Is this true? And every time she comes out with a new element within her grand story, it's crazier than the last one, and it makes less sense, and there's less proof of that. And that's the biggest difference. And it's causing real harm. It's causing real harm to everything I've listed just a few minutes ago. Radical commie liberation movements on campuses been a tool since the 60s. I agree. Maybe Candace was involved and she is purposely doing this. Well, look, I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think she was involved. I don't think she was involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But using her logic, if I was going to use her logic, we could definitely tie her into it. Like, she has a lot to gain from this. She got fired from TPUSA. She hasn't had text directly from Charlie since 2018. They clearly had bad blood. She wasn't invited to their wedding. That's weird, to be his best friend. And look, there's a lot of background information that you can find out that clearly indicates they were not friends. He was polite to her in public. That was it. All right. That in of itself is a scam. Check out Heavy Duty Country Charlie Kirk neck video. Sure. Another thing, I've been talking to Nate several last few days. Hopefully I'm not misrepresenting what he said, at least in his video. I know what he's told me personally. I don't know how much of that gets conveyed in videos. I don't have time to watch his content. He's a great content creator without a doubt. What people have filled my comments both on YouTube and all through X saying, well, Valhalla disagrees with you. Well, Nate, we agree on this now. Like, just so we're clear, he's come around. He's like, hey, you know what? I've looked at other evidence. I think that he could have been shot in the neck and it not exit, which has been my position from the beginning of this. Like, we don't know enough. Is it an anomaly? Is it atypical? Is it an atypical result? Yes. Has it happened? Do we have evidence of that happening? He just had Chuck Ritter on the other day, who was shot with the equivalent of an AK-47, and he was actually shot in the spine. It didn't exit. It did do a 90-degree turn. That round did. And everything that we saw with Charlie. And of course, we do have Martin Luther King as well. So just so you guys know, like, people are coming around to Gary's original stance with this. And you know what? I don't care. This is one of the things that, people have been trying to pit me and Nate against each other down in the comments, both my followers and his followers, like, oh, you got to set him straight. I'm like, look, man, Nate does his own thing. I don't know where he's coming up with what he comes up with, but he's a grown man. I like Nate. We're friends. And that's the thing. I don't care if we completely, and there are definitely some things that we're divergent on, right? Like we disagree on. He doesn't like TPUSA. But he didn't follow TPUSA to begin with. Like, so the only exposure that he has with TPUSA, again, I feel like the waters have been muddied, and his exposure is, Mikey McCoy did some weird stuff. That seems weird. Like, they're lying about these little things that really aren't lying. They're misstatements. I mean, those are just facts. It's not me just covering for TPUSA. It's like I said, when Frank Turek says we were watching drone footage, he was mistaken. That was not drone footage. That was an overhead camera being used, a 360 cam, and they thought it was drone footage. It's a simple mistake. But it's little things like that that have been turned into these lies that are later on snowballed and then turned into a conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk. So I don't care if we disagree or not. We're friends. That's how I feel about everybody. I am so libertarian. I don't care if you are a complete racist or whatever else. As long as you're not going out and hurting people, and that's just your personal opinion, we can still be friends. I don't agree with it. I think it's ugly. I think it's evil, and I would tell you that. But that's not enough for me to just say, oh, you're just a piece of shit because you believe this. Like, and I don't know anybody like that. But that's my point. You guys get it. Like, we should be able to believe what we want to believe and still be friends. But when you go out and start hurting people and you start doing the things that Candace is doing and damaging the trust and faith of all Americans, that's a real problem. Candace needs to be charged for helping the scam artist Mitch scam her followers out of $100,000 for him. One of the things that me and Nate were talking about is once we prove this is all bullshit, which we are going to, by the way. Once we prove this, hopefully Candace will actually donate that money somewhere else. I don't know how she has that fund set up. I don't know if she has the ability to direct those funds, but without a doubt, it's fraud. So hopefully, give it to some veterans group or something like that. That will be after she gets 100 million views or 1 million views or whatever. You got there 10 million views on the 500th episode. When that episode comes and she has no evidence, she will say back to Brigitte. I agree. Please be in touch with Tim Pool. You need his platform and he needs support from the idiots. Well, I think Tim Pool is a big boy. We live in the same county. A mutual friend of ours. I've never met Tim Pool. He lives here in Berkeley County, West Virginia as well. Or at least that was the Berkeley County Sheriff's Department is who he filed the report of shots being fired near his home. I know most of the guys on the Berkeley County Sheriff's Department. If I wanted to, I could have called one of them and said, hey, give me information. I didn't want to abuse that friendship. It's not something I would do. But long story short, we're in the same county, and a mutual friend of ours did give me his producer's number. I sent him an email. I would like to get Tim on my show. I'm not really interested in going to his show, but I would like to get him on my show, have him come here, and we can talk about the things we agree with, the things that the things that we disagree with. I don't even know where his position is on everything. I've caught many of the same sound bites that you guys have gotten. I don't know. I don't know how read on he is with this entire thing as well. Bongino is a fraud. Changed my mind. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't necessarily disagree. Here's the thing. I used to listen to Dan Bongino quite a bit. He took over Rush's time slot, which, man, I wish Rush was around, right? I don't know. Like, I first got into politics when I was 20 years old in 2020. That was the Gore Trump election, right? And so we had the hanging chads and everything going on with that. I had no idea what a Democrat was or really a Republican or what that meant. But what I did, I started paying attention during that election to politics for the first time. And I just knew that I didn't like Gore. And then, of course, we had the whole hanging chads event and all this. So long story short, I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. And I've listened to Rush Limbaugh to the time that he died every single day that I possibly could. Man, he would be a great voice during all this time. I wish he was still around. But going back to that, see, I went down a rabbit hole. Going back to that, Dan talked a lot of smack about what he thought was real, what he thought wasn't on his on his radio show before he became the assistant director of the FBI. We didn't, and maybe it's just not possible, but we definitely didn't see the gravitas that we thought we were going to see from Dan Bongino once he became the assistant director of the FBI. And, you know, understanding how government works, I get it. I think a lot of people go in there thinking they're going to change everything, and, you know, they're going to completely, you know, they're just going to change everything, right? There's just going to be a complete redo of how these systems operate, and you get in there and you realize it doesn't work that way. And I want everybody to think about the fact that, you know, we had the deep state, we had the deep state FBI. Yeah, there's a lot of new people in charge, and there have been people that have been let go and fired and things like that, both in the FBI and other agencies. But there's still a lot of people there that are just in it for themselves. They're just career bureaucrats, and or they are literal deep state people that are just leftist ideologues that have a little bit of power. And that power may just consist of delaying things. Like, hey, you're the one that has to approve this, so it just sits on your desk for a month instead of the 30 seconds to do a signature and overview of whatever's going on. I've seen those things take place. So I don't know. I give him a little bit of grace on there, but I would love to talk to Dan now that he's out. I'm sure he's had to sign a freaking mountain full of NDAs, but I would love to get his insight of what he thought he was getting into, the changes that he thought he was going to be able to make, and then ultimately what the truth was, right? And ultimately why he left as well. I don't know if we'll ever hear that. Brian Harpole may not have killed him, but he 100% didn't save him either. His principal is dead, and he wasn't shot by a 30-06. Well, TJ, I disagree. I actually saw many of your chats over on Valhalla talking shit about me the other day, which, you know, Nate was kind enough to shut that down real quick. You don't know that he wasn't shot with a 30-06. He didn't save him. There was no saving Charlie at that point. There's been a lot of lies talked about that. I can go back into, and we can relitigate security and how close protection actually works and their capabilities. I don't see the point in it, but you're welcome to your opinion, but you're just wrong. Like, you don't know that he wasn't shot with a 30-06. I don't know either. I don't. I haven't seen the bullet. I haven't seen other information that we're not going to see until the trial. That's a fact. So, you know, you're operating on a baseline of information that starts off wrong, so your conclusions are going to end up wrong as well. And, you know, it's all your super chats. She's the only one who cares. Why is everyone acting funny? She's the only one cares. Why is everyone acting funny? I don't know if you're talking about Candace or not. Let's see. We got a couple of super chats here. Newsom is a snake, and the left is tearing down the Conservative Party. Like PBD said today, a shot caller needed to step up and get his division under control. Yeah, look, I mean, she's done a lot of damage to the conservative movement. There's no doubt about it. And it really can't be stressed enough. CO's investigations are like me with roulette. Neither of us understand them. Just place bets everywhere. Sure to have at least one winner that way. I agree. I'm afraid to post on my sheet metal business social media accounts. Candace may name me because maybe my aluminum sheet came from the same factory as the Egyptian plane makers got theirs. Yeah, the connections she makes with no evidence, or nobody else would even come to that conclusion based on our own common sense, is a little nuts. There he is, CJ Carenti, always supporting and helping out the channel, buddy. Thank you very much for gifting 20 Paramount Tactical memberships. You're the man. Brian Harpole may not have killed. Okay, we covered that one. Did you do that twice or what? Also, TJ, I did notice the other day on VFT that you said that I skipped your super chats. If I did that, I can tell you that was an honest mistake. Folks, little things get crazy on here sometimes. If I ever skip a super chat, please email me. I don't care if you're just talking smack to me. If it's just, again, ad hominems, you can pay me $3,000 and I'm not going to put it up there. I'm not going to post nonsense. But if it's a disagreement or a criticism of me or whatever else, I'm going to post them. And if I didn't post them, I promise you it was not intentional. People have emailed me before. If I miss a super chat, I promise you it's an honest mistake, and that just happens sometimes as these things roll along. Yeah, Candace did not do a show today. I don't know, that may be related to all this stuff coming out or not. What is the makeup of the Candace followers, age, etc.? Anybody know? Look, I think it's going to be primarily women, but it's shocking to see both young and old women. But I think there's, again, when you got, I don't know, she's got 7.5 million followers, I believe, on X. Who knows how many of those are bots, fake accounts, things like that, because that's a lot of what's going on and driving X for sure. And then she has a lot of subscribers on social media and YouTube as well. So I think a lot of this, if someone was able to get in there and kind of forensically analyze her following, I think we would find that there are a lot of bots, a lot of artificial things pushing her popularity. Don't get me wrong, she's popular. There's no doubt about it. It's just like the Jerry Springer show or anything else. When someone is telling you this wild story, it's, got all these twists and turns and drama and suspense, people are going to pay attention to it. It's just most of us, we're telling you about reality. And so we don't have that luxury to take you along that joyous adventure. So she is wildly popular. I'm not saying that, but I do think that a lot of what we're seeing is artificial as well, and most likely pushed by foreign adversaries and operatives, as well as political operatives. So I think we need to keep that in mind and think about that. One thing I thought was odd, this is the first time I ever even realized this. Somebody on X, they ran a poll on X. I don't remember what the poll was, but it was something supporting maybe Candace, one of Candace's theories. Let's just say it was like, let's say it was just, hey, who believes the official narrative and who believes that Candace is right? And it was like 80-20 for Candace on X. They ran the exact same poll on Instagram, and it was the opposite. So I was really shocked to see that. And I think that also kind of indicates the echo chamber that X has become for some of the stuff. It also may indicate that there's just a lot more bots and artificial push that's taking place on X that maybe they're not able to do, or not as effective, or just not investing enough as much into Instagram. And I think ultimately the US population, for those of us that are really into all this stuff and are paying close attention, we feel like this is first and foremost, and everyone's paying attention. I don't think most people are. And I don't think that there's even close to a majority of people that are paying attention to this that believe Candace is nonsense. And sometimes that gets lost. I think it'd be a lot less than what we think it is at the end of the day. But you can't say there is no reason for TPUSA to eliminate Charlie. I can say that there's no reasonable reason. There's no common sense backed reason that they would eliminate. Charlie was their cash cow. TPUSA doesn't exist without it. Like the suggestion is imbecilic in my mind. Like there's literally no reason for them to. You can come up with some. You can manufacture reasons. You can say, oh, well, and by the way, I don't believe that they had any sort of tax issues going on. And, I don't believe that there was actually money being abused and all those things. Okay, that is people saying it from the outside in. These are the same people that confirmed the Egyptian flights. All right, according to TPUSA, and it makes sense because they still exist, they've had external auditors come in every single year, and as far as the IRS is concerned, they're golden. Like their books are good. And by the way, this, what they've said is like Charlie went through every single expense account and approved expenses and was looking at that. He micromanaged that. Again, maybe they're just lying about that too, but there's no indication that there would be any reasonable explanation that they would eliminate Charlie. You can come up with it. If I'm Candace Owens, I can sit around and say all kinds of crazy stuff and make people believe it. It doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't even mean it makes sense. So that's my stance on that. It ain't talking smack if you can back it up and no shooter has got a 30-06 to stop in 6 inches of flesh or ballistic gel. No hater, love you, GM. Look, for people that just have a little bit of understanding the ballistics, they're like, oh, just go out there, take some ballistic gel and shoot into it. That makes perfect sense. All right, super easy. You can confirm or deny like that. When you understand the complexities involved with this, and we are going to end up doing some ballistic testing, like how do you replicate that shot? How do you? Especially when you know nothing about the ammunition that was used. We don't know a single thing. Now, if you want me to, if the idea is, hey, Gary, I want you to just go show me that a 30-06 can get stopped in a medium similar to something that would replicate Charlie Kirk and a spine, I could do it. Okay, I can be disingenuous and I can go right back here to my reloading gear and I can reload. I can load up some 30-06 rounds that I promise you that will not overpenetrate something like a human neck shot at a downward angle at 10 degrees. I promise you I can. Is that honest? Like I wouldn't even feel good about that because we don't know if they were hand loads. We don't know if they were light loads. We don't know what grain the bullet was. We don't know if there was something going on with that rifle to where the round itself did not gyroscopically stabilize, because if it was an extreme yaw, it would not penetrate. All right, it would not go through. It would not create an exit wound. If that round was doing one of these numbers, and that would also explain a atypical entrance wound. So if that bullet didn't hit point, bullet tip on the mipla right onto the neck and create a nice thin hole because it was at a weird angle because it was not gyroscopically stabilized, not only would we almost guaranteed not get an exit wound, it would also make a larger entrance wound, which is what we saw. Now, here's the question. Well, Gary, how do you make a bullet hit a target at 140 yards and put it into extreme yaw and under gyroscopically stabilize it? That's a damn good question because I don't know of a way to do that. Like I can get an old rifle. I could probably just to create those conditions would be very difficult to do. So, the complexity of replicating that, like if you don't understand the complexity of replicating that shot, then you don't even know the tip of the iceberg of ballistics. That's just a fact, TJ. Elaine Neely, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Plus, do poll, who's rooting for Macron to please do poll, who's rooting for Macron to win? That's a good question. Would etching change the trajectory? Not on. So here's like, we got a bullet right here. All right. Bullet. All right. As I understand what was described, the etching was done on the brass itself. That could have an impact on it, depending on how deep it was, what tool he was using, a lot of things going on. Even if he was using like I don't know what he was using to engrave on this. If it was like a vibratory engraver, like a Dremel, those are things we don't know. My question is, and this could, all right, if he got up here and started actually, we don't know if it was actually engraved on the projectile itself. I don't know what he did to that bullet. And this is another reason why it's very difficult if someone's just being honest with you to say, hey, it's very, very complex and downright almost impossible to replicate what was going on because we don't even have the information to know that. What I can tell you for sure, and this may be a test that we do, this is actually a pretty good idea. Maybe we go up here and and this is a 30-06 bullet, by the way. So maybe we go up here and we do some engraving on one side of the bullet. Now, what that will do, that will cause it to unstabilize. If there's less material on one side than the other, that thing cannot spin on its axis correctly, and it will go into extreme yaw. That may be something worth testing, Debbie. So look at you. Number one, we really appreciate your super chat too, but that is actually a really good idea. Yeah, we don't know the length of the barrel. We don't know the twist of the barrel. These are all things I've brought up. We don't know what condition that barrel was in, if it was almost shot out to begin with. We don't know if there was damage to the crown that would affect the trajectory. What we can logically surmise is that he was either 10 or so inches high and a little bit off to the left and right, or 10 inches low. He was either aiming for high in the chest or for the face. I think it's a very low possibility he was aiming for the neck. And he could have missed, not because of his aim or his ability to apply the fundamentals of marksmanship. He could have missed because maybe Charlie moved at the last second or something like that. He may have hit him that way. So that's the problem. There's so many different variables involved with this entire case, especially just on the ballistic side of it. It's extremely complex and very difficult to replicate. Something else I was going to say with that, but yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to know. Gary, thank you for all you're doing. Great informative information as always. You're absolutely appreciated and the best. Thank you, Pat Brooks. We appreciate you, buddy. It is sad commentary that there are so many people buying her hogwash. Jay Witt's right. She is an IQ test. That is a good point. Look, and I think we laugh a little bit about it now. I think within the next couple of months, like one of the dunks on X are going to be like, "Oh, you used to follow Candace, didn't you?" Basically saying you're stupid. That's going to be a pejorative. Almost no doubt about it. Please explain frangible 30-06. I don't understand guns. Okay. Even this is complicated because not all frangible bullets are the same. I have some over there. All right. So a frangible bullet is designed to break up upon impact. There's a couple different versions of a frangible bullet. Now, from what Candace described the other day when she was talking about saying, oh, it could have been a frangible bullet. And even she is now saying that, okay, it didn't exit because it was a frangible bullet. It could have been a frangible bullet. I'm not convinced that it is. I definitely wouldn't say it's a frangible bullet based on the explanation that she gave. Almost all bullets, regardless of type and construction, are going to fragment when they hit bone. That's a fact. I don't care if it's soft point. I don't care if it's full metal jacket. These bullets tend to fragment once they hit bone. Frangible bullets, I'm going to break it up into two basic categories, and there's subcategories of this. Just that in itself is a complicated discussion. So there are some frangible bullets, for instance, center fire. I got a bunch over there. You can get center fired, and they use a process called sintering, where they take basically metal powder. All right. They take metal powder and they compress it under extreme pressures. And then what's left is this bullet shaped projectile, right? So we have a projectile. So when it hits steel, and most of these types of frangible bullets, when they hit steel, which is what they're designed to hit, it's for like practicing and shooting steel, they just turn into a puff of smoke. All right. Sometimes there's larger fragments and everything else, but pretty much they turn back into powder for the most part. Now, there's a lot of other frangible bullets that don't do that. And most of the varmint rounds are frangible bullets. They are larger pieces of metal that have been compressed, and they're designed to break up very quickly upon impact. Some of those bullets, sometimes they actually have a copper jacketing as well, but they are designed to have tremendous terminal ballistics. When we say terminal ballistics, the ballistic effect of destroying the target, right? So varmint rounds, terminal ballistics. We don't use those on deer because we're not trying to cause massive damage to the meat itself. We use a lot of varmint rounds in that. There's a lot of tactical projectiles and ammunition types. For instance, TAP, Hornady TAP is. I've been told that Hornady TAP is tactical application projectile or something like that. But what that is designed to do is to not over penetrate. So it is designed to fragment very quickly. If it hits, let's say I shoot a bad guy, I don't want that round to go through that bad guy and then go into 3 other rooms, right? So we want to limit the penetration. So they make these frangible rounds of different types. I've actually been told TAP was their VMAX, which was their varmint round, basically just rebranded to a tactical application round because they saw the use case for it in tactical applications, because we don't want over penetration. All right, especially if we're shooting bad guys inside of a house. I don't want to shoot a bad guy in a house and the bullet either misses or goes through the bad guy and then, you know, kills a kid in the next room. So these are limited penetration rounds. That's what they're designed to do. So there's every company makes a different version of a frangible round. And not all of them are the same. Not all of them perform the same. Some of them are made to do slightly, or just have slightly different terminal ballistic characteristics. And I've tested a lot of this stuff. There's a video on my YouTube channel where I talked about the benefits of using an AR over a shotgun for home defense. Did a whole video on that, and I actually did a lot of testing with that. So really one of the first videos I ever put out on YouTube a long time ago, and then there was a long time where I never put out another YouTube video. So anyways, that's what a frangible round is. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If you guys have additional questions on that, I'll be glad to answer it. But there is an extreme spectrum of what frangible rounds are and how they perform. Condition of the barrel, condition of the gunpowder, these are all the things that I've said. Let me go back to the X post that I've had pinned for a really long time. It covers it all. Here's what I said, and I posted this November 20th. 30-06 ballistic facts. You cannot determine or predict any terminal ballistic outcome without knowing the following variables: ammunition source, factory or hand loads, ammunition type, low recoil, varmint, big game, or dozens of other commercial options. Ammunition condition, old, new, exposed to the elements or moisture. Projectile weight, 30-06 is available from 55 to 220 grain plus. Projectile type, full metal jacket, soft point, ballistic tip, frangible, tumble upon impact, and dozens more commercially available designs with vastly different terminal performance. Muzzle velocity, projectile stabilization, determined by proper twist rate of the projectile determined by proper twist rate for the projectile weight, also affected by barrel defects, damage, or condition. All right, we need to know all of these, or at least several of these variables, to make a valid ballistic prediction. This is an objective fact. Anyone claiming otherwise is wrong. No one in the public knows a single one of those details. This list does not include external variables that can further affect terminal ballistics. Until this information is available, anyone claiming that the round should or should not, anyone claiming to know what the round should or should not have done is purely speculating. And that's true. That's a fact. So, you know, that's where we're at. Candace came to me in a dream and told me Jesus wasn't really Jewish. She comes to in a lot of our dreams, no doubt about it. Let's get some more of these questions right here. Yeah, I keep going back to this too, Kelly. This is, to me, the most compelling element of this entire investigation. Tyler R. is the one, I believe it, for one main reason: his parents. They'd be shouting from the rooftops if their son was being set up, and they aren't. You're correct. I follow Heavy Duty Country, but he's gone off the deep end and just isn't credible on anything about Charlie Kirk anymore. Look, I don't follow Heavy Duty Country. I've heard about some of the things he said, not from firsthand, so I don't want to be a judge on it. So I don't know the first thing about Heavy Duty Country. I don't know what he's saying or not saying. Don't really care. It's not providing an alibi, Gary. It's establishing a false assertion by uniform bozos to more monetization for a channel. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Con. I'm sure I lost some context up there. Gray Hughes in the chat, everybody. Our good friend Gray. Gray, we need to do another live stream together. It's always fun having you on. I hope people actually sue her and go all the way. It's probably happening. Maybe. What is victim blaming? Look, we're all here to learn new things. Victim blaming, for instance, is essentially what's happening to Erica Kirk. Sometimes it happens to an actual victim. So, for instance, an example of victim blaming is if somebody is assaulted. All right, we'll just say it like that. And then people say, well, it's your fault that you were assaulted. In this case, it's a little bit different, where Erica obviously is the victim. Her husband was murdered on television for what he believes and for what he says. And now they're going back and blaming her and saying a lot of different things. Number one, there some people that don't even believe that she had anything to do with it, are just, again, accusing her of things and demonizing her and smearing her because she's now the head of TPUSA. And even though she's mourning and dealing with all of this stuff, she's trying to put, a happy face on and go out there and do the job that she is now hired to do. She's now the CEO of TPUSA. So, and I think that's what I think objectively, all of us would agree that Charlie wouldn't have wanted her to sit around and cry and weep and whatever. Like, no, put your clothes on, get up, go out there and do some work. That's what I would want my wife to do. And yeah, selling merch. Oh God, she's so evil. They're selling merch. Oh God, like raising money. Like that's what they've always done. That's their business model. That's what they do. And they do a lot of good with it, by the way. As a matter of fact, I would suggest to everybody, if you care about the midterms, if you care about the political future of this country, you should donate to TPUSA. Do some research. Maybe there's somebody that's more effective. Before Charlie died, there was nobody more effective. What he was able to do with the amount of money that he was given is profound. This is an interesting question. Do you think that Eric Kirk, as the CEO, is really calling the shots at TPUSA? She's probably relying on a lot of help. That doesn't mean that she isn't the executive that is taking a look at the big picture. I think any good executive, I don't even know what that means, calling the shots. I think good executives, what I always try to do, and this is something that Jocko Willink and many other people that talk about running companies talk about, is you decentralize, right? And it's like, hey, I'm going to give you my vision of what we should be doing. All right. And then you put people in charge that go execute that. Until they start failing, it's wrong to start questioning, to micromanage, right? And start saying, well, I want you to do it this way. Well, you put that person in charge of that, let them do their thing. And then if they're not producing results, you can bring them in like, hey, look, this isn't happening we're not getting the results that we want. Let's figure out a plan together. And hopefully you kind of let them kind of think this through, and that way they can take credit for it. Like, we need to put things back on the rails. So I don't even know what you mean when you say, do you think she's calling the shots? She's the CEO. She probably has a direction that she has taken from Charlie. Charlie knew where he wanted the company to go and how to get there. She's probably doing the same thing. She's probably still getting her feet underneath her and figuring things out. So, I don't know how much control she does or doesn't have, or does or doesn't want. People have different leadership styles as well. Yeah, look, this has always been a thing with TPUSA events. They've always been over the top. I mean, you may be able to look, there's a lot of value in production. I'm sure you get to a point where there's diminishing returns. I mean, everybody's talking about it, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. We're talking about the pyrotechnics on stage every time, Erica comes out. I don't care. It's a lot better than accusing people of murder without evidence. I know that. Like, you can waste $1 million on pyrotechnics. You're not as bad as a person that is accusing someone of murder without evidence. Just put that in perspective. Funny watching the frangible thing spread. Just shows how unfamiliar people are with ballistics ammo. There's hollow, soft, polymer tip, and everyone latched onto frangible. Latest buzzword. They did because Candace brought it up. I mean, I don't know. If I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have had that clip ready. But Candace basically said that I believe that it wouldn't exit if it was a frangible round. I mean, Gary's been saying this since, week 2, or week 1. I want to be clear too, that there's no doubt that I have evolved on this issue. And I feel like most of you kind of come along for the ride. Originally going into this, I definitely found it hard to believe that we had a 30-06 round. And you guys know, I started off with the initial first day of it, I thought that he was wearing body armor. I was wrong. And as soon as I found out that I was wrong, I said that. As a matter of fact, the very next night after I released that video, I said, hey, I got new information. I got photos. Doesn't look like there's possibly body armor underneath there. I could be wrong on that. I announced that the day after I released that first video. I did say, hey, look, you know what? I'm looking into the potential that we have low pro body armor. I know it exists without a doubt. Gave a bunch of different reasons. But one of the initial explanations I said is I think this is potentially frangible ammunition and all those things. Now, once I got off the idea and realized, like, hey, it didn't hit any sort of ballistic protection. We didn't see a deflection. I was like, man, that's hard to reconcile with what I knew at the time. And I didn't know about. I'm a ballistics guy. I shoot guns for a living, have done so for the last 20 years, teach long range for a living. I reload. I do it all, right? I test guns for manufacturers. They send me guns and ammunition to test. Have I done a lot of testing with 30-06? Absolutely not. I've shot a 30-06 like 5 times in my life, maybe. It's an antiquated round. We don't see it very often, which is another reason it's a really stupid gun if you're going to try to create a pansy with, like, oh, he shot it with a 30-06. That's weird. Why wouldn't you just go with an AR-15? That would make the most sense. Anyways, I digress. Point here is I found that whole thing hard to believe. And I remember somebody telling me about Martin Luther King getting shot with 30-06 in the comments. I looked that up, and guess what? I did a deep dive into Martin Luther King, what was going on with that. I also did a deep dive in other anecdotal points about 30-06 hitting people and not exiting. And I realized that it is absolutely possible. All you got to do is look for that information. What I can tell you for sure is that Martin Luther King was not hit with a frangible round, and we still didn't have an exit. It hit him in the face, hit him, went through his jaw right here. Okay, it hit his jawbone, big deal. All right, hit the jawbone, went down into the neck, very similar to Charlie, hit his spine and went downward. I did a really deep study and research on the wounds that he has and everything else. Outside of not hitting his jaw first, what Charlie experienced is extremely similar, as been described by other people. And yes, there was a lot of contention around Martin Luther King. I looked through every article I could find on it. There were people saying that the CIA had him killed, that somebody else other than James Earl Ray shot him. The idea that it was a 30-06 is never contested. Like, I didn't see that anywhere. And it's only now being said, oh, well, if the CIA did it, they did it with a different round. I don't think that's true. And then we go to Chuck Ritter. I've come across Chuck Ritter, who is also a former Green Beret. He was shot 4 times with the equivalent of 30-06, 7.62 by 54. One of those went into his back right here at the rib cage. I don't even think it hit a rib. It went through his back, into his spine, shot downward. So the idea, like, we don't have enough information about 30-06 and the terminal ballistics of it to even come to a conclusion. I mean, that's just being factually honest. Like, we don't sit around. I'm a ballistician. Like, I study ballistics for a living. Internal, external. Those are the 2 things I mainly study. I don't study terminal ballistics. And I don't know any, I'm sure there are some people out there, and I would love to have them on the show, but there's nobody out there shooting 30-06 on a regular basis into different mediums, into legitimate test mediums that would be a good analog for what Charlie Kirk experienced. Like, we would need Charlie Kirk. We would need the same gun, the same ammo, the same angle. And even then, every terminal ballistic outcome, we can use all the exact same parameters, and they're going to be different. They're going to be 100% different. They're going to be different every time, 100% of the time. Maybe it's 1 out of 10. Maybe it's 5 out of 10. We don't have an exit. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that it's not impossible. And without knowing anything about the ammo or the gun, it's impossible to say it's impossible. That's always been my point. And even I evolved on that whole thing because I actually studied it and, found good information. I mean, if you're getting new information and you're sticking with, that's the other thing that's crazy to me is, like, all these people, they get new information. They start off on one theory, palm gun or whatever else. They find out, or they come to their own conclusion that was nonsense. And then they go to another theory. And even though that none of these have evidence, they're not willing to even accept the evidence that we do have for what we think took place. It doesn't make sense. Gary, thank you for your service. Thank you, buddy. LOL, I'm thinking about playing Clue with Candace Owens. No, Candace, it can't be Mossad in the hanger with the dreidel. Those aren't even options. That's a pretty good one, man. You guys keep me entertained. I still have 20 rounds left, 25-year-old 30-06 ammo that I tested and had 3 of the 10 keyhole. And I can send you to test. Check email for Surf Goose. I will do that, Desert Goose. Thank you very much. I would love that. Candace is now in the witness protection program again. She loves a next to good old Mitch. Yeah. 100%. It definitely severed the spinal cord when JFK got hit in the neck. His hands went up too. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that whole argument is even crazy. Did it hit his midbrain? Did it sever his spinal cord? I think it did all the above. I mean, just with the hydrostatic shock wave, I think we had damage all through the brain. You just have fluid and forces going up into the head. If he hit in the neck, it probably damaged everything. I mean, his entire central nervous system was destroyed. Watching Candace Owens' interview with Pierce, she admitted it doesn't have concrete evidence. She evades questions. That interview was an eye-opener. Yeah. All you got to do is watch about 10 episodes and you're like, man, what am I doing here? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Today they came out with another ignorant theory saying it was an EMP attack and he was shot with a drone. Well, the drone thing has been going around for quite a while, almost from the beginning. It always gets boiled down to drones somehow. The other thing that's going around that maybe I'll go through a debunk. All right, Baron Coleman's talking about how he was actually electrocuted with the microphone. I think it's bonkers to say that. What we saw was not an electrocution. I mean, I'll have to go through it and actually watch it to see how he reconciles that we have some sort of injury take place. Like they're desperate to deny reality of what actually happened. And when we could be looking at, hey, Tyler Robinson clearly did this. Now let's figure out what caused him to do this and who else was involved. They're not interested. The moment that you bring that up, even if you're just an innocent bystander and like, you don't think it could have been Tyler Robinson? Like, you fed, you're paid by Israel. Like, they want to shut that down so hard, and they're so desperate to do so that should be suspicious in of itself. I don't know why. I don't know why they're at least not willing to explore that and or other people that possibly assisted him. I don't think that Tyler Robinson was a lone shooter. I think he was the one that took a shot. I just don't think that he acted alone. And I'm open to the idea that there were many other people involved. And it could have been deep state government actors. I'm open to that. I think they did it through a computer. I don't think they, put, the patsy down here with a 30-06 and shot him over here with 5.56. I think that's stupid. Doesn't even make sense. All right. This is one of the dumbest theories. I miss Mr. Kim Smith, and I think this is bot stuff too. I don't even think this is a real person. If this is what this person's saying, and forgive me if I am misinterpreting your insinuation here. All right, there's all these people saying that Charlie Kirk's not dead. You're an idiot. I don't know what to say about it. You're an idiot if you believe that. Yeah, it's so bizarre to choose a 30-06. This is part of my point. Like, if you're going to frame someone, you're going to create a patsy, you're not going to do it with a 30-06. You're going to do it with a 5.56. ARs, it's the expected. It's what everybody expects. They're so prevalent. You can get them anywhere. You can get them to where they're completely untraceable. You can buy them off of, Joe Schmo or somebody already has them, or you can build them. You can build them. All right. And there's definitely ways to do that to where that gun would be completely untraceable, wouldn't know where it came from. We could put his fingerprints all over it. We actually have set him up, put another shooter somewhere else that has a similar trajectory. No one's ever going to ask questions because you know what? The Patsy gun was 223 or 5.56. Clearly he was shot with 223 or 5.56. Done. That's how a smart person would actually assassinate Charlie Kirk with the intent of having a patsy. Yeah, I thought it was the funniest thing when she couldn't answer whether she was in love with Charlie. Just danced away from it. I agree. Uh, Thank you, Lisa Dotson. We appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, I did see that it's not GoFundMe, it's something else. But I think the last time I checked, it was over $130,000. So that's what he stands to gain. Cup and core bullets are meant to mushroom, but because of construction, they often turn into so-called frangible rounds because their core is not bonded to the jacket, often letting the core separate. Yes. That's why a lot of hunting bullets are what we call bonded bullets. Exactly what he's talking about. So they actually bond the internal core to the jacketing. It's actually fused together so they don't separate, or they separate and expand in a much more controlled fashion. Yeah, I know. The microphone thing. I'm talking to Baron Coleman and some others are saying that the microphone that he was holding electrocuted him. Forget about the exploding microphone, wireless mic. They're now switching theories altogether and saying he was electrocuted and killed by holding the hand mic that he was using on the PA system, which I got to do a deep dive on and figure out what they're trying to say with that. And we'll probably go through that and debunk that. Got to separate the wheat from the chaff to get to the truth. Like, people got to stop putting out this nonsense. And that's the thing. That's what's crazy about all this stuff, is that you can have, 100,000 people watching this stuff, watch a video, and most of them just clap like seals, like, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, no, that's wonderful. That doesn't confirm the official narrative, so it must be true. I'm good with it. Even though it's stupid. It doesn't make sense at all. I have to hand it to Candace. Over Thanksgiving week, her downstreamers made a lot of money and created a lot more hype for her return due to the French Foreign Legion chasing her. You were correct. And that's what you see. That's what he means by downstreamers are all her proxies that she has. There's a whole list of them. They do most of the dirty work, and they're the ones actually protecting her to some extent from getting sued, because she can suggest it, and then these people get more specific with it and put out all that information and provide an explanation as to why something so ridiculous that she suggested gives it a mechanical ability to actually work. That's what they're doing. And I'm telling you, it's coordinated. It's a psyop for sure. Charlie asking for the Doge audit, the well-made fake clips circulating of the assassination. Yeah. I've seen a couple of clips from the Eric Kirk and Nicki Minaj. I haven't seen it in its totality. Something I've been planning on watching. I feel like my brain is deteriorating when watching Candace. EMP attack, then everyone's phones, cameras, cars, etc. wouldn't work. They'll have some lame brain freaking explanation for it as to why it was isolated just to Charlie. It doesn't need to make sense. None of the stuff needs to make sense. It doesn't need to have a conclusion. It doesn't even need to be directly related to Charlie Kirk. Even when we go back to this Fort Huachuca thing, it is only an insinuation. He only implies, like, no one ever says, yeah, I heard them talking about the Charlie Kirk thing. The whole thing could be true, and we still have no facts or any direct ties to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Let's say Brian Harpole was there. Let's say Erica Kirk was at, the Quality Inn the night before hanging out with somebody. And then he walked into some sort of meeting and he saw all these people. He never says, no one ever makes a direct tie. And again, this is calculated. All right. What Candace is going to try to do, I think she's going to fail because of her opening speech. Excuse me. Candace, if someone attempts to sue her, she'll say, what? We just said that, this meeting took place and people ran with it and made the assumption that it was them planning the Charlie Kirk assassination. All right. The problem with that defense is when you go back to her opening meeting or opening statement of that video, where she says, after you watch this, there's no way. The only thing that could happen after you see what I'm getting ready to show you is that the U.S. government is going to have to admit that they were involved in the Charlie Kirk assassination. That's how she opens that entire video with. So she's really good at allowing the viewer to guiding the viewer to a conclusion with nothing but, just dazzled with bullshit. That's what she does. That's what she's really good at. I'm going to put out a video on this, but again, do your own research. It's about time to expose him. I'm tired of him. Like, I try to look. We need to stay focused on Candace because we cut the head off the snake, the rest of the body dies. Just Google Baron Coleman. Google Baron Coleman Whisper campaign. Google Baron Coleman was an informant. All right, all those things are true and documented. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is kind of how I felt with some of that too. Like, try not to give some of these people error. That's how I felt originally with Candace Owens until it metastasized to a point to where I had to address it. I just couldn't take it anymore. I have talked about Mitch Snow. We got a lot more coming to that. We will provide all kinds of receipts. We will provide witnesses. We will completely debunk not only his story, but so much more that he said. I own multiple rifles from World War II. I've shot the G43, the Mauser K98, the Russian 7.62x54, Mosin Nagant, the STG44, the M1 Grand, and Springfield rifle. I understand World War II ballistics. Okay. I mean, have you studied terminal ballistics? Do you really know what 30-06 can or can't do? I'm not saying, I don't even know where if you're using this as a statement to reinforce something you've already said or as a precursor to something that you're about to say. There's a lot of people that shoot guns, own a lot of guns, doesn't make them an expert on anything. I just want to kind of clarify that, and respectfully so. I have driven a car my entire life. I am not an auto mechanic. I am not a race car driver. I may not fully I definitely don't understand vehicle dynamics and high performance driving the way the race car driver has. Just because we have tangential experience does not make us a subject matter expertise in one area. Those are just facts. So no offense, Derek. Just saying. Can't believe how many people are so desperate to deny the truth. Wake up, people. Baron's such a fraud. I can't watch him for 30 seconds. Now they're saying Butch Hibbs gave Charlie the microphone. I don't know how much of that's true. There's a new theory of the shot being fired from the trunk of the car parked nearby. This is not new. This is actually, so Trigger Smart and a couple other people were going with this theory. They've abandoned it at this point. So I don't know. This was going on a month and a half ago. That was when that kind of came out. So they've kind of walked that back, or at least moved on to other things. I haven't watched it. I need to. That's bonkers. Baron references Peru Singer as proof. South America and Europe are 220 at the plug. We have 110 for most things. Look, my problem with this whole thing is, how do you reconcile all the other facts that we have? Like, how do you explain, okay, if he was electrocuted, how did we have a massive wound in the front of his neck, on the left side of his neck? How do you explain the gunshot? How do you explain not only the gunshot? I know there's people out there saying that the gunshot, what we hear is audio coming over the PA system, which is stupid because sound is directional. There are people that are outside of the PA system. You may get away with that if you're because the speakers were over here. All right. You may get away with that if you're right up against the speaker, and you think the gunshot may have come through the speaker or something like that. But there are people way in the back and on top of that upper deck. What's his name? I'll think of his name, that put out that one of the original videos that was out. You see people turn toward the direction of the gunshot. Like, how do they create that with the PA system? So you got to reconcile all that. And then there are people that are within the trajectory line of that we know we hear not only we got the hear we hear the crack thump, right? So we hear two distinct audio sounds only on certain people that are near close enough to pick that up to where we actually hear that supersonic event taking place. How do you reconcile the electrocution theory? And people are all over it. If you go look at his comments, they're like, "Oh, this is brilliant. This is just brilliant. Oh my God, he's got it figured out. He's over the target now." And you're just looking at this and realizing how dumb people actually are, that they would believe something like this. Whatever, man. I got a few more super chats here. Here's one on that. Baron doesn't realize the PA runs on 110, plugs into 110 plug. Wire gauge able to handle 110 to a 110 breaker. He references Peru Singer as proof. He doesn't realize LSA, South America, and Europe standard is 220. I would say he doesn't realize a lot of things, if that's what he's saying. And I need to listen to it completely before I judge its total validity, but I can just tell you from what I know now, it's a ridiculous theory. There's zero chance that Tyler didn't at least talk about it with other freaks in his circle. Whether or not they helped is a question. So one of the things that I was going to bring up tonight that I had sort of prepared, I was back there making a video where I could just play the video and just show everything in sequence, is all of the different social media posts that we have predicting this event coming from queer and trans types accounts. Like, people were talking about this. People knew about it. I don't know how much that has been explored by the FBI. If they're not, and this has always been my point with all this, is I have no doubt that the FBI, maybe even Utah, would want to kind of wrap this up with a bow as quickly as possible without having to research other conspirators, right? Or uncover something larger. I know law enforcement, they can be incompetent and they can be lazy. And, but what I can tell you is that there's too many people involved, from the federal down to the state, down to the local, for it not to have been Tyler. All right. You can exclude all the other stuff because you don't want to, or you don't want to expose something larger, or you just don't want to make the public worry or whatever else. All right. But what they're not going to get away with is trying to fabricate all this evidence and eyewitness testimony and everything else. Like, everybody would have to be involved, including the defense attorneys, the parents, and so many more. And that has been my point from the beginning. I've never thought that Tyler was the only one involved, and I still don't think that. And I think that's where the real conspiracy lies, and that's where the government deception may lie too. They may just not want to explore those things. I don't know. Maybe they are investigating them fully right now. Maybe they have people in custody. That part of it we don't know either. I do think that Lance Twiggs is in custody. I think that's why we haven't heard from him or seen him or anything else. He's either in witness protection, and maybe they're just going to, offer him kind of, maybe their story is that he didn't know anything about it. Now he's just a witness. I don't buy that. But they may be trying to tell us that. They may be lying to us in that regard. Or they actually plan to charge him as a conspirator and are offering him a plea deal if he actually provides witness testimony. That's also a real possibility. And he may implicate many other people, and they may have already done that. We don't know because they haven't told us. I think Candace watched that Mark Wahlberg movie, Shooter, one too many times. TJ Cavalier, my frenemy, TJ, super sticker. We appreciate you, bud. Disagree with all you want. And I don't even hold it against you. You're talking shit about me to VFT. I don't. Typos earlier, living in witness protection next to Mitch. Look at that. Look at TJ showing the love. Look, see, we can still be friends, TJ. Match ammo made to shoot steel high G1, G7 frangible ammo. I'm going with Burger. I don't know, but I know. No, LOL. Absolutely. All right. For those of you guys that don't know what G1 and G7 is, it's two different ballistic coefficients that we use in ballistics to determine ballistic external ballistic outcomes. All right. Thanks, Gary. Thank you, buddy. Look at this. We got Addie Martinez. She's a realtor. Became a YouTube member. Thank you, Addie. We appreciate your support. What kind of weirdo obsesses about whether Francis first? It's a great question. I don't know. I'm so thankful for what you're doing. I've lost a few friends over this Candace situation. I send them your videos and I hope they watch. Isn't that weird? Like, it's really strange, the division that this has caused. And what's also weird is you can't even disagree. You're not allowed to disagree with Candace. If you do that, you're cut off. And they want you to participate. Like, I think this stuff is just mental illness. I'm like, there's nothing you can do to get me to believe this stuff, but you want to force me to participate in this mental illness thing. And to me, it's very similar to the scam that we had with the trans movement. Like, no. If you don't accept that a boy can have a baby, then number one, we can't be friends and you're an idiot and I'm just not going to talk to you. Like, to me, that's the telltale sign that this is a psyop. How they shut down everybody else that simply disagrees, but just wants to offer a differing opinion on it. You can't do that. There's no room for that. There's no tolerance for it whatsoever. See what happens, folks? This thing skips up, changes on me. And sometimes I miss people that way. You had said that you would like Candace on your show. Don't. You would never get a single word in the Pierce Morgan interview. Yeah, she likes to filibuster. That's what she does. She just talks over you, talk. I thought she was going to pass out. I don't know how she was able to maintain oxygen levels while she was talking without even so much as a pause during that. All she did was talk and said a whole lot of nothing. One large religious ideology supports her because she hates Israel. Scary because politicians believe they're patriotic Americans and base votes on them. Many who have verses in bio, not even Christian VPNs equal USA. I agree with that total assessment. I think there's so much. Look, what we see is this weird alignment with the left in Islam and other countries that are influenced by that, right? I don't know how much is, again, it's pure speculation. All right. Gary's not bringing receipts on this. I'm just telling you what I've seen, what I believe to be true is I think the left and anti-Israeli forces, look, no matter how you see this, let's say there's nothing involved. But the moment that you have somebody like Candace come out and blame Israel, I don't care if you hate Israel. I don't care if you're anti-Semitic or anything else. Just hear me and listen objectively to what I'm trying to tell you. If there is someone like Candace as a platform that she has that starts implicating Israel into something, everybody around what's going on that is anti-Israel, and there's a lot of nations, a lot of political actors that hate Israel, hate Jews, and whatever else. I don't care if you're one of those and you think that's legitimate. What I'm saying is that people are going to capitalize on that, and they have, without a doubt. And they're interjecting a bunch of fake. I think there are bot farms pushing what she's saying. I think there are bot farms pushing what her downstreamers are saying. I think there are bot farms that are going after people like me, just saying, hey, like, this can't be true, and here's why. I think we're seeing all of those things. Oh, Riz66. I love watching you on X, buddy. Always appreciate your support. Let's take a few more, and I will probably, either tomorrow or Wednesday. Wednesday's Christmas Eve, probably not Wednesday. Maybe tomorrow we're going to do our Christmas party. Maybe we'll do the Christmas stream after Christmas. I think we did that last year. We got a lot going on. I may do a stream tomorrow to cover the stuff I was planning on covering. I think it's important. I just don't have time for all that. $7,000 is great money. I agree with you. The fake laugh and the nonsense, people think they're family, their bonding is lunacy. Always like, yeah. So he's referencing, I forgot what that whole acronym stands for, but it's the ANON thing. QAnon. Tyler Robinson has not claimed innocence or that he's a patsy. Why are others eager to make this argument for him? So far, it appears he has admitted guilt. Yeah, look, I think he's going to end up pleading not guilty just to try to negotiate the death penalty off the table. One of the things that I was going to show tonight were clips of him in the courtroom, as well as Jesus, the body language expert, analyzing what's going on there. And I'm going to tie that in with a couple of other points that I'm going to make. I'll probably, I plan on doing that podcast tomorrow. I'm just saying other things might come up. We got a lot going on, a lot of new information coming and more coming in. We're being inundated with people not wanting Mitch Snow to get away with what he's getting away with right now. Yeah. So that guy, Nate, we have talked about this 100 times. And I understand that if you're just tuning in, two things have been said about the rifle. Number one, or the picture of the rifle. Number one, that was a stock photo. We've proven that it is not a stock photo. It's not a stock photo. That is the photo for sure. They haven't shown the actual gun. They have. That is the actual gun. I believe that wholeheartedly. What you have, look, you can take any old gun, and we see this. I don't know how old that gun is. We know that rifle has been made since the early 1900s up until even you can still buy one, as far as I know. I don't know if you can still get it, or you can get it in 30-06. All we show on that rifle is a modern stock. That doesn't mean it's not a modern. Doesn't mean it's a old firearm or an antique firearm. We own a gun shop. People do that all the time, where they come in, they bring this old rifle. Sometimes that the stock is busted up. It's usually wooden. The other thing too, people don't realize is people were smaller going back 50, 60, 70 years. So these stocks are a lot shorter than they should be. It's where you can't even mount the gun properly. So whether it's just an old gun that has a beat up stock, people replace those stocks all the time. And of course, well, I won't say of course, a lot of the times people to choose a modern stock that's adjustable. So there's nothing weird about that. That's easily reconciled with that. So again, these are types of things that are being pushed that, again, snowball these little lies or these little misunderstandings. I'll be charitable about it. But all these little things that turn a fairly easy to understand situation into something much more suspicious. Like, that's not even the right gun. That's a stock picture. No, it's not a stock picture. That's not the right gun because it's an old gun and that looks like a new gun. They changed the stock. It's 2 bolts, a couple $100 for a new stock. Nothing crazy about it. We do it all the time. Let's see. We got a new member, Lila A77. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is a great point, Catherine. The vicious attacks of anybody showing evidence that Candace is lying, or any evidence, or just discussing the evidence that supports the official narrative, you are viciously attacked on X. I think I've seen Catherine on X, so she knows what she's talking about. Yeah. So many people hear Grandpa's Mauser and assume it's a World War II rifle, but it's not. It's a modern Model 98. His grandfather isn't that old. And again, even if it was a World War II Model 98, it has the exact same, we call it the pattern, right? So where the bolts go has the exact same pattern as the newer ones, and we can put a brand new stock on there and completely completely change that. I think that possibly at some point in time they put a 30-06 barrel on there. So that's not weird either. They we change out barrels all the time. We change out stocks all the time. We modernize older rifles. Not that big a deal. Yeah, it's Candace, Nick, and Tucker destroying the right, not our useless candidates. They definitely have more influence over the voting population than any politician right now. Like, we are in an age of political influencers, and politicians are trying to catch up. They're trying to basically become these influencers, right? They're doing a lot more social media stuff. But that's where we are in all this, is instead of having brand influencers, we have these political influencers. Probably the person that pulls off the politician / political influencer the best is probably AOC. She's always understood how to um, use social media effectively, and she's done a good job. So yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you, I'm very disappointed in Megyn Kelly as well. Not a fan anymore. I unfriended her. The fact that she is sort of going after Ben Shapiro for that talk while she sits there, knows all this nonsense going on with Candace is destroying Erica and TPUSA, and hasn't spoken up in her defense nearly enough. And then she just wants to kind of lambaste Ben Shapiro for calling out her cowardice. I don't know what to say about it. Yeah, a lot of people say this. Look, she probably was never a true conservative. She's good at talking. She's good at influencing. It's most likely that she always went where the money was, and there was a niche for her to fill. That could be wrong. Look, that's speculation. I don't know. But regardless of all that, I don't care if she was the truest conservative to ever exist. What she's doing right now is immoral, unethical. It's disgusting, and it has to stop. Has to stop. All right, last few questions. Here we go. Are you a lefty? You have a watch on both wrists, but keep looking at the one on the left. My right-handed friends have a hard time reaching me to shoot. No, so I have two watches, folks. One for AM and one for PM. Just so you guys know. I'm joking. This is not a watch. This is a Whoop fitness band. So it tracks all your metrics, steps, heart rate, skin temperature. I really like it, actually. So it's a fitness tracker. It is not a watch. I get asked that all the time. I don't know what this person's referencing. It's an intermediate 98 action, not a regular 98. They don't make them past World War II. Yeah, I haven't looked into that much. It's never been a concern of mine, one way or the other. I know it's a Mauser action. Who cares? It's the gun that they said was used. It makes no sense if you're going to do this conspiracy to use a 30-06. It's almost ridiculous. So that in itself, like, there's some validity to all this in my mind. Just the fact that we have a 30-06, like, because no real conspirator and nobody planning this would be like, you know what? Let's just for giggles throw in a 30-06 in this. Let's shoot them with 5.56 from a different position, or 300 black, or whatever caliber you think I've heard people mention, and then throw in a 30-06 just to, like, for what? Megyn Kelly hates Barry Weiss because Barry built something that sticks to her principles. Megyn took the money, praised the trans kids. She's proven what she is. Look, I've read some articles with Barry Weiss that are good. I don't particularly like Barry Weiss either. I think she gets a little weird sometimes. Not a fan. Not saying there's anything bad with her. What I will say, I don't know if you ever saw I remember watching this way back when. It was before Joe Rogan left LA. So it was probably at least, I don't know, 2020, something like that, at least, maybe a little earlier. Barry Weiss was on the Joe Rogan show, and she was just talking mad shit about all these things she thought were true about Tulsi Gabbard and some other ones. She's like, oh, yeah, you didn't hear? That's definitely true. And Joe Rogan was like, where did you hear that from? Like, how do you know that's true? Oh, no, everybody knows it. I don't remember where. And then they look it up, and it's, completely false. So, and we've all done that, right? We're all guilty of that. But, when you are a independent journalist, you got to be more careful about that. But there's other things that I just don't particularly like about Barry Weiss. Maybe I need to relook at her and her work. Never been a big fan. Look at the Sean Ryan and Hunter Biden interview. I have no interest in looking at that. I'll be honest with you. The new TPUSA inside polling was given to Josh Hammer, and he shared the data on the show today. There's only 13% in the convention that are anti-Israel. So just know all the division is way less. Yeah. Does it tell you if you're on your period? It does, I think. Yeah, I get it. Megan's trying to stay neutral. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you can sit there and watch this and see the attacks that Erica. Look, here's what I'll say. If for some reason, and I don't think this is true, if for some reason that Megan thinks there's any validity to any of the things that Candace has claimed, I'll give her a pass. I don't think that's true. I think it's obvious to anybody with, a quarter of a brain to see what Candace is doing, and it's about, she hates TPUSA and she hates Israel, she hates the French, and then somehow they just conveniently came together and decided to kill Charlie Kirk and now have a hit out on her. I don't believe that's true. I think we've got a couple more super chats. Jesus said repeatedly in his ministry, "He who has ears, let him hear." Many don't have ears to hear. They don't want to hear truth. Rather, they want to be the ones who decide what truth is. That's true. And Goose, we thank you for becoming a new member. Thank you very much. Look, the fact is really what this is a whole lot of people. Again, I think the well was poisoned at the beginning with everybody pointing out these weird things happening during the event. And then they turned that into suspicious behavior, which turned that into a lot of other just hate coming toward TPUSA. And now people are fairly convinced from that there's something there, there's suspicion, and they've already come to a conclusion, and they will not accept anything else other than any evidence or anyone even proposing anything that confirms that bias. They will reject all the other evidence. They will reject evidence against any of these things, any of these theories, alternative theory, whatever it is. They'll reject it all. And they have to stick with this. And now, it's become part of their personality. And now they'll even cut friends off if you don't believe them. They'll call you names, all everything that they're doing. Yeah, so okay, this is a great point, and this is something I almost kind of shared at the beginning. And I'll cover this. Candace said she believes the guy unless and until Brian can prove where he was. Maybe it wasn't him or Erica. They could easily prove their whereabouts that day. Okay, let's say that Candace has Brian Harpole's phone number. Do you think that she should text him before she releases this information, or days and days afterward, and ask him where he was and provide proof? What do you think is a good journalistic, ethical way to go about that? Okay, what I can tell you for sure is that Candace sure didn't call him, text him to ask him where he was before this information was released, because she doesn't care about the truth. She didn't vet this guy. That's clear. It would have taken 20 minutes for somebody to vet this guy, to figure out if anything he's saying is true, and or to pull up a lot of bad behavior in the past that would damage his credibility with this itself. So this is the guy that I wouldn't even have on my show, because I would take 10 minutes to figure out who this guy is, do a quick background check, cost almost nothing. You can see that he has an extensive criminal history, and there's a lot more things that indicate that he's not telling the truth. So what I'm telling you is this is just more proof that she's not interested in the truth. It's smear now, find out information later. It's wrong. It's evil. It's evil because she doesn't care about the real people involved in all this stuff. She doesn't care that she is destroying people's lives. And by the way, literally causing them to get death threats because of all of her sycophant candy cult people that are crazy, that are going after these people that she's saying that are involved in this murder. It's disgusting. There's no way, like somebody mentioned earlier, there's no way I'd have her on my show just because I couldn't stand to look at her. And there's nothing she could do to convince me that she's done any of this stuff in good faith. It's terrible what she's done. And no American should tolerate this. Like, everybody should be calling her out. And I don't understand why they don't. Yeah. All right. Candace is a Democrat funding controlled side to divide the right. That's why she blames everyone but the gay, furry, trans lover. I agree with that. Where can somebody just posted, this thing's moving around on me. Somebody just posted, where can I find a link to, you only care about having Israel as an ally or other countries too. Why are you singling out Israel when we give more money away to many other countries? Oh, he's talking to somebody else. Yeah, this is another thing too. Like, I think there's a real discussion that we can have about Israel and the money that we give to other countries and the foreign influence that we have on this country. I think those are all legitimate discussions. There are people that are just completely fixated on Israel. All right. Ian Carroll is one of them. There's many other people that just hate Israel. And no matter what you talk about, no matter what political discussion is going on, it just always comes back to Israel. And it's clear to me, and I don't even care. Like, I'm still indifferent to Israel. Like, I am. I do think that they are a good I think that they're a strategic ally so that we can force project in the Middle East. But I have some criticism of Israel too. But there are people that no matter what, it always comes back to Israel. Like, their entire being and everything they report on, everything they talk about, like, it'll start off with something else, but then it always comes back to Israel, like, just always convincing you that Israel and Jews are the problems of all the world. That's something that Charlie rejected outright, and I do too. It's so dumb. It's just dumb. That's the thing. Erica and Brian do not need to prove anything. They were not charged. This is 100% true. Like, find proof of the information. Ask these people if you have access to them. But what she's doing constantly is accusing people of heinous crimes and then demanding that they prove their innocence. That's not how this country works. And there was a time that we wouldn't even tolerate such a thing in our society. But now we not only tolerate it, we encourage it, we incentivize it, we monetize it, and we say, give us more. Give us more. It's disgusting. And everybody needs to do a check of their own conscience, because it should be wearing on them a little bit when they're promoting this nonsense. Yeah, no, they don't understand the burden of proof is on her. They don't expect any proof. Do 30-06 come with frangible bullets? Yeah, so they do. Well, there's a couple different ways. And this goes back to what I'm saying. We don't even know the construction type of the bullet. Was this a hand load or was this factory bought? But yeah, almost any varmint round, which you can definitely buy varmint rounds for for 30-06, almost any varmint round is going to be some form of a frangible bullet. So yeah, they do. But you could also reload them with frangible of all types. Oh no, I don't fault Nate at all. Like, we're good friends. We just got the phone. I've talked to him, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a day. Not faulting Valhalla at all. I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else. Maybe somebody else was talking shit in there. I have thought it was funny, again, throughout all of this, people have constantly been trying us to get, just call us shit. He called me one day of a comment that was said, I responded to, and he took it wrong. I wasn't trying to be shit talking or anything, but we had this long discussion. Like, hey man, like, just because we disagree doesn't mean that we can't be friends. And I just want you to know that comment, that's not what I meant the way that you're interpreting it. I just want you to know that. And we had a good, reasonable talk about it, like normal people usually do. And I've heard him say some things and do some things. I never took it personally. And Nate's a good dude. I like him. We disagree on a lot of things, and we haven't even. I'm sure we could go through the list of things that we disagree on. Doesn't bother me one bit. If you were Satan and saw the massive acts to, Unified Body of Christ, TPUSA. What plan would be more perfect to stop revival than this? 100,000 TPUSA apps. I'm not exactly what you're saying. I think what you're basically saying is, yeah, this is an opportunity that a lot of people are seizing upon and capitalizing on. And the thing is like, there's no end to the different motives that can use this to promote their cause. So if you're somebody that hates America, you can jump in on this and promote all this stuff, because basically what they're saying is that the FBI is untrustworthy. They're going to cause chaos just and undermine the U.S. government in general, even if they're non-political. If you're a country overseas that thinks that, hey, you know what, it's more beneficial when we have a Democrat in office, you can use this to undermine the Trump administration specifically within its own people. They're doing that. They're doing a great job of that. All the things that Trump has accomplished is kind of being undermined by a lot of this. But the thing is, if you look on X and other places, or even social media, or even on YouTube, these people bringing up the fact that, they're saying, hey, the FBI is lying about this, so we shouldn't trust the FBI. We shouldn't trust the FBI. We shouldn't trust the U.S. government. But then they'll bring in like another element or another thing that Trump is doing. And trust me, I'm with everybody on the Epstein files. The fact that we haven't seen the Epstein files, I'm with you. All right. And clearly Trump has to take responsibility for that too. So I'm with everybody. But the point is, they drag in all these other things and they attach them, say, okay, well, clearly everybody that in my feed is convinced that the Trump administration is involved in killing Charlie Kirk. So now I'm going to bring in this completely unrelated political aspect or event or whatever else, and we're going to attach to that and say, like, look what also this person's doing. So they're bringing in, they're kind of DJing in all these unrelated political arguments and using what the picture that they painted about the culpability of the U.S. government in the Charlie Kirk assassination as a reason to not trust the Trump administration on domestic affairs and everything else. So, I mean, you can see that. It's very obvious. People should be paying attention to that. I just wish Gary didn't go off on his subscribers. He went off on me for asking a question and wanting clarification. Well, if I did that, Goth, I apologize. I'm only human, but I'm working on that. Just ordered metal legs. Like if I did that, I apologize. I think I go off on my subscribers a lot less than most people. So fair enough. You know what? That's something I'll work on. There's lots of things to criticize me on. That's probably one of them. I'll get better. Is this the debunk Valhalla was going to do? I don't know what you're talking about specifically or time reference. I know we just got the phone. We're trying to plan and figure out how we're going to release all the debunk with this particular thing. Candace is a woman of courage and integrity. She has zero integrity. I'm just going to say that. Nobody here is Israel first. And again, this is the false dichotomy that's constantly being thrown around that really irritates me. If you don't support Candace, you love Israel. Like, I don't love Israel. I couldn't care less about Israel. I care about the United States of America. And I also care about a force that is there promoting chaos and destruction within our own political party and is going to make sure that the left wins, because that's what she's doing as she's telling people not to vote. Don't vote. Nobody should be voting. I'm not voting. You shouldn't vote. Don't vote. Don't give money to TPUSA. She doesn't have integrity. She's a liar. Flat out. Yeah. Let's see. Nation No, Bruce Bevins, 18 Fox, 1SFG, or someone who does. Candace ranted about him, a gym and 4-month course prior to introducing Mitch. All false. Perhaps Mitch has an axe to grind with Bruce. Yeah, I don't know. I never heard of, I was at First SFG as well. I never heard of Bruce Bevins that I can remember. No, Charlie was not suspicious about TPUSA before he was assassinated. That's just, there's nothing, I've seen it all. I've seen people try to paint that picture. That's not true. Candace does hate TPUSA. She does hate TPUSA. The same people that were all the same people that are in the leadership. They were there when she was there. They ousted her. They didn't want anything to do with her. Charlie hasn't had anything to do with her in years. So just stop. And I know that she was on a speaking tour in 2024. Guess what? That's how that works. You don't have to be friends with somebody to have them as a guest speaker. And they do that all the time. That is not indicative of a close relationship with Charlie. There's a reason that she doesn't have any text messages since 2018 or 2019. That's 6 or 7 years ago. And, you know, that's that. There's a reason that she wasn't at his wedding as well. Here we go. Here's the bots. Candace is the top podcaster, the only one fighting for Charlie. Everyone else is a shill at this point, of course. Same reason Jerry Springer was the top TV show as well, because it's entertaining. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't mean it's true. All right. Let me just double check to make sure there are no super chats that I missed. Yeah, I hit that. Another super sticker from TJ. You're the man, TJ. I love you. You're back in good graces. Would you please consider bringing Gray back on to go over what he's done with court docs, pics, videos, timeline, and Google mapping? I don't think enough people have seen his breakdown. It really is a great fit for the Candies. I agree. I always love having Gray on. We do need to have him back on. He and I have talked about it a little bit. We just never settled on a date and a time, and it'd be great to go over all of that. See, I did miss some. See, I'm going back, and you can tell by often she looks right to the left when talking. She knows she's lying. You don't have to be a Glenn Frey to see those lion eyes. Yeah, look, I've said some things about. I don't buy into, especially when you're just looking at a camera. I don't think. I don't know. I don't buy into the body language stuff. I think there's too many variables. Again, we need to have Jesus on here. I'd like to talk to him about some of those things. I'm not always buying into that stuff. Garrett, TJ, Gary, I feel like we got off the wrong foot. I'm a fan. I wasn't talking smack, maybe a little. Either way, love you. My Paramount merch, the 30.6. We'll have to say that for another day, I guess. No worries, man. No hard feelings, buddy. You are in my good graces. I appreciate you. Yeah, if I missed one of your super chats, that's the one. He's saying I missed his super chats on purpose, and I didn't. If I missed a super chat, it was on an accident, and I apologize. Matter of fact, email me. You know what? I'm going to give you a free super chat, TJ. Email me, and I'll make sure a question, a comment, whatever you want, and I'll try to put that up on the screen first thing. Now that Charlie has passed, Candace is attacking Erica in any way possible. She wouldn't have the guts if Charlie was alive. I agree with that. Israel first hate Candace because she wants the Epstein files released. Like, everybody wants the Epstein files released. Nobody's. I'm not. I 99% of the people, like, where was all this Epstein file stuff and hatred going on, or accusations going on when the Biden administration was in, and they had it. So anyways, I think everybody wants the Epstein files released. I don't care if Trump's implicated or not. I want the truth of that. If he was involved, let's fry him too. All right. I'm not going to put up with pedophilia. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's on the same. And again, that's what this is. It's a constant false dichotomy. Like, oh, the only reason you hate Candace is because you're all about Israel. No, I hate Candace because she's a liar and a grifter. Simple as that. I was irritated at Candace's post, E-Talk. show when she said lies were corrected. She brought up the text being in a separate app. It's like she don't know what is a lie is the intentional telling of mistruth. I agree with that. There's so much of that stuff going on. Well, listen, folks, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And we got a lot more stuff to cover, a lot of stuff going on. I got a whole show prepared back there, ready to go. Uh-oh. Love your shirt. It's just so you. Thank you. I got a whole nother show prepared to go. I think one of the things we are going to start switching a little bit of focus to is I want to dig into all the other elements of this. I want to dig into the mind control element, to the online influencing element of weaponizing kids. That's something that's going on. I genuinely believe that some of these mass shootings that we've seen were dry runs, test runs, or just seeing what's going on. I think that is something we need to look at. Could be involved with this, but what I do think for sure is that it's clear to me that people were posting, making predictions about what was happening on, when Charlie Kirk was killed. So that hasn't been looked into. It hasn't even been anything considered by the Candace following. And I think that's something we need to direct our attention to. We do have a radical left in this country. And I think the radical left is who killed Charlie, and, Antifa, trans Tifa, all those things are very real and they're still a threat. And those need to be addressed. And we need to get to the bottom of that. Well, listen, folks, we really appreciate all of you tuning in. Let's see. Looks like, all right. No, I got those. Really appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those things. If you want to become a member and support us, we appreciate that. Share our content. And if I don't talk to you guys, if I don't see you before then, I want everybody to have a very Merry Christmas. I will be live. I will be live tomorrow, without a doubt. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.